Hello there, Vic Benedict here. We're playing God of War 3 Remastered on Chaos difficulty, and this is my Pain Plus guide and walkthrough. We're currently on installment the 16th. This is the Tartarus section. It will be jointly named the Gates of Tisiphone. So there are two main encounters on this section, and dear me Jesus, this first one is very difficult to no damage because there's just hundreds of these lesser enemies and a few archers, and then of course this dude here, and this is the general, and for some reason he doesn't he doesn't charge. I don't know if it's because they don't want you to exploit that. Maybe his being a general, he leads, he gives orders, he doesn't, get his feet dirty or whatever it is. And I have a hard time doing this part because of the propensity of these enemies to grab you. And then of course when you've got archers, sorry about that, you've got archers, they can get shots in on you. There's probably about 6 to 8 archers, but the main problem is if more than one of this group grabs you, you might as well reset. And sometimes the damage that you take is so minuscule that I personally, I'm not sitting too far back from the screen, but I literally cannot see if I've taken any damage because of how slight it is. So I almost wish that I had put on the godly possession that just gives you one sliver of health back, or it drains your health. I haven't done that run with the chalice. I haven't done a chalice meme run or whatever people like to do with that particular one, but it would definitely come in handy so that I'm just killed if I take damage, because I'm going to reset anyway, and I think the reset time would be a little comparable. But I think this guy can and might charge you if you use the bow, but beyond that, once you've gotten to this point where you haven't taken any damage, you don't want any problems with this fucking bastard at this point. And the reason is to get to this part without getting hit, without using magic or different things, it's extremely difficult. So I'm not above spirit whoring here, to be honest, and I think this fight is definitely harder than the one that's coming up with the two chimeras, excuse me. Only because the ability for you to get grabbed over here is just outrageous. It's just outrageous. I've tested getting grabbed by more than one enemy and having that quick time completer on with the godly possessions. You still take damage. Also, in the next video will be the boss fight with Kronos. And you remember back in 2017 when I did that run, and I had a really egregious issue with a section where you're hanging on the side of his palm and you're vulnerable, and it's very difficult to not take damage. Well, I've got it a little bit better than I had it before, so I know more now than I did before. So that's always one of the perks of doing a run like this, is that I can come back and dovetail on my own progress and see what exactly was giving me such a hard time and see if I can solve the problem. In fact, we've been successful in many areas on this walkthrough, if only on the Hell's Carousel. So I was very satisfied with that. This fight over here with the chimeras is actually, to me, kind of boring. This is a it's a huge room, and I wish it had a little bit more to offer than just 2 of these enemies at the same time. Now, I also wanted to mention that if throw in some lackeys or something, but I realize the risk of always ram whoring. So, and I know that ram whoring in this game is probably one of the most boring things to watch, although it's one of the most effective things to do. So I do apologize about that. So I want to talk about Pain Plus rules over here as they apply to these the bramble pots and these enemies. If they hit the pots, they get damaged by them, and they get damaged pretty heftily by them too. Especially that second form. All he has to do is just hit it with his claws, and if it makes good contact, he gets just put to the quick time event quickly. But you need to double back too and see if you've put them off of the screen after they interact with those pots. There's a good chance that they've dropped to a quick time event and are immobile and need to be grabbed by you and put to different status. So obviously the third phase is the most problematic because it moves around the most. Fortunately, through the use of camera whoring over here, you can control this enemy, which is something that you ordinarily cannot do. Can you kick the pots at these enemies and manipulate the pots? You probably can, as long as you're not using the bow. But I'm just letting things play out naturally. I'm not touching the pots. I'll just let the enemies hit the pots. I'm not going to interact with them, risk any sort of violation that when I look back at it or something like that. I think that if you are kicking the pots at them and manipulating them, you're probably overstepping something that you shouldn't be doing, even though it's not a direct anything that's like a violation directly, but I think if you think about it, you're manipulating the environment, and you probably shouldn't. But if you remember the first encounter with these enemies, I was showing you about camera whoring on them. Don't put them completely off of the camera, just put them partially off of the camera. Just keep a little bit of them on the camera, and then they will get into this perpetual see how they keep jittering, moving back and forth, and they can't decide if they want to jump forward or backward. Don't take it for complete granted though, because the minute you think you've got them completely contained, that's the minute that they will jump out at you through some, something that's happened, some movement, some camera, something that happened that you didn't expect. But by all means, you can skillfully position yourself so that these enemies take a lot of damage. Parrying the attacks of the second one actually does knock him back. There's going to be a Talos encounter. I think you probably remember the one that I'm talking about on the Kronos boss fight. There's a Stone Talos ×2 encounter with some cursed remains, and then you've got a platforming section where you're hanging off of this platform and you're completely exposed, vulnerable, and it's very difficult not to get hit. Yeah, that's coming up. That's probably the hardest part of the Kronos fight. For bad reason too. It's not even fun, and it's awkward too. So this is not that difficult. I mean, yeah, it's hard, but the previous fight I think this takes the cake. It's just very frustrating. This encounter is longer, but I think it's a lot easier to get hit on the previous encounter, which is it's just shorter. So it's which brand of poison is your preference, basically. So you're gonna have to move around the room too, even though you've got them caught off of the camera partially. The super plume only has so much reach, so you are gonna have to to move around and see where you can be that's safe, that you can still get that super plume to reach over to them. Now, you shouldn't worry about, you know, getting any to a particular phase. Basically, just kill the first one as quickly as possible, so that you don't have to shoot two that you're messing around with. Of course, it's going to take a little time. But see, I've got them both trapped off the screen to the right, but the super plume it has a lot of reach, but I need to move around a little bit more. Fortunately, you can move around safely and not compromise too much what you're trying to control with them being off of the screen a little bit. We're getting pretty bold over here. We still have a bramble pot left, which if we can get that to work for us, I might be able to get see how that ram attack that he does, and when we parry it gives us no benefit. Sometimes you can stun an enemy, but that enemy with that attack, it doesn't net you anything. But in this game, the parry window is so open that it's often harder to block than to parry. I mean, do you know what I mean by that? When you get into the rhythm of parrying, you get into it so deeply that trying to block is harder than it is to parry. But I'm not trying to take away anything from the parrying system itself. I do really like this enemy, but I think having to do Hades Kids 2 was kind of overkill for me. It just kind of killed this enemy for me. So what I was going to... Remember how I mentioned that parrying that attack doesn't net you anything? It's also the same with the Stone Talus. It's actually more... Well, it's not that it's more preferential to just block, but it's not even that it's safer, because if you're into a parrying mode, trying to purposely block rather than parry could probably get you into more trouble than if you're just trying to block. You know, that's when you know someone's really deep into a game like that. But I don't mind in anywhere having the amount of experience that I have with this game, because I'm a 10-year veteran with this game, and I'm very happy with it. I love this game. I like the combat of it. It's very fun. I don't think I've ever found a game that has more enjoyable combat than God of War. Of course, there are a lot of other games with great combat. But anyway, we finally have just one of them left, but fight's over anyway. And now, I did this section over here without any mistakes, any platforming mistakes. But I just wanted to say one tip: if you are trying to ride the harpy around, you don't have to stay airborne with the harpy by pressing X. In fact, the more times you press X, the closer you are to stabbing it and not having a ride anymore. So when you see me platform over here, just bear in mind that while I'm waiting for an opening to jump onto something, I'm just hanging with the harpy and not pressing X, because that will quickly destroy your ride. I know it might sound obvious, but that is not something that they talk about. They just say press X to go forward with the harpy. But you could actually linger for quite a long time with just not doing anything about hitting it. Now, what happens if you don't hit it for a long time? You will get pushed off eventually, but you have a long grace period where you can wait to do the platforming of a part like this, which can be kind of frustrating. But I say it again, the harpy riding in this game works very well, better than I expected it to. See, like right here, I'm just waiting for an opening. Right there, I was getting pushed off at the end, but the timing is just spot on for this. It works very well. And then I am not going to interact with any of the cursed remains as we go over to Kronos, because again, they're just nothing enemies, and it's a waste of time, and they kind of stretch the meaning of a word fight. Now, on my other walkthrough, I was getting red chests, going out of wasting people's time, and especially over here, there's really no point to fighting these enemies over here. So we're going to speed roll our way down into the pit over here, and we will take on Kronos in the next video. And I've got some better strategies than I had before, especially in reference to that that part where you're really vulnerable on the side of his hand. So always a perk of doing a Redux project. Please take care.